answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Well, they're militarily defeated. In their own minds, maybe they don't know that, but I think they do because I deal with them. And we cannot ever let Iran have a nuclear weapon. But they are militarily defeated. They have no Navy, they have no Air Force, they have no anti-aircraft weaponry, they have no radar, they have no leaders. Their leaders are gone. It's very interesting because, you know, they make a deal and then they break it, then they make a deal, they break it. It's a difficult group, but from a military standpoint, I mean, if we left today, it would take them 20 years to rebuild.
That is President Trump talking about the situation with Iran. And he says if we left today, if we cleared out of the entire region, it would take 20 plus years for Iran to rebuild. But you know where they would spend their first dollar, the first dime, rebuilding their capability of creating a nuclear weapon. So we can't really leave. Trump has backed off, still saying, because Pakistan has said, I think you guys can bring things together, maybe have a peace deal within a week. Because the new Iranian regime, the one that keeps coming in after we decapitate the rest of them, as Trump pointed out yesterday, they're more malleable. In other words, they are more frightened to death that will they be the next to be targeted by U.S. drones or whatever else. So they want to find a deal to survive. And I think right now it is a personal survival issue more than it is a survival for the Iranian regime and everything it's represented since 1979. It makes no difference as long as they recognize we're defeated. And anything else we do, it's just going to bring more pain and suffering. But again, the leadership of Iran, even though they may be quaking in their boots that they could be the next to suddenly have a drone pop into their neighborhood, they do not care if the Iranian people suffer. They want them to suffer. Want them to suffer. Trump does not want them to suffer. That's why he keeps looking for a way to avoid directly attacking all of Iran. And we could do it overnight. I mentioned this on day one. We could level the entire nation of Iran to rubble no higher than 3 feet high. Now, they've got a lot of nuclear material buried deep into the mountains, but if we shut everything down there, it won't make any difference. It'll be there forever until it is removed, hopefully under careful consideration and controls. Trump has said we will no longer use military naval vessels to escort ships through the Strait of Hormuz. And as long as Iran does not fire on them or try to hold them up for toll, you gotta pay us a little money, then we will stand back and let that happen. We are still blockading the Iranian ports that would receive or try to export oil and in turn get money back. We're not going to let that happen. But we're going to let other ships do their job. And some are coming out of United Arab Emirates excited to come through the strait and start delivering oil to the rest of the world. And that's why Iran continues to fire on the United Arab Emirates, their neighbor, another Muslim nation. Because the radicalists inside Iran, they don't want anyone to succeed except them. They are full jihad. But it's weakening because the leadership is disappearing, vaporized, to be more precise. Welcome to hour number one, Larry Connors, USA, May 7, 2026. We're here every Monday through Friday for you from 6 to 8 p.m. And when we're on the air, We deliver news, analysis, opinion, and education. You're going to learn more in this hour than you do right now. I promise you that. Just listen and you'll find out. In our next hour, Alan Dershowitz, longtime Democrat, since he was 12 years old, basically, says, right now, I'm terrified by those who represent the Democrat Party. I think you get a reason why, but I want you to hear directly from Alan Dershowitz, law professor emeritus at Harvard University. He says, I'm done with the Democrat Party. That is not good news for them. I've been running a commentary today talking about Barack Obama's insisting, there's a talk of a rift between Democrats and the far left inside our party, but it's a minor deal, and I think we have a lot of Republicans who agree with us. They're not Republicans. They're not conservatives. And we might have a lot of Democrats who agree with us, and again, they're not conservatives either. But I think we will all get along together and come together. Kumbaya. And yet James Carville, the political analyst, says they're a bunch of loonies. They're like a bunch of clowns in a crack car. I think that's a good description. Later in this hour, the U.S. is planning to wage war on the Mexican drug cartels because Mexico is not doing the job. And I understand why. They fear for their lives down there. If they try to stand up against drug cartel, you and your whole family could be executed. So I appreciate what they're facing. And quite honestly, those inside Mexico would be glad to see the cartel wiped out, but they're not going to say a word. And they might be forced to engage U.S. forces. We will get into that later in this hour. And our story behind the story. On this date, 1945, Germany signed off an unconditional surrender, ending World War II. But there's a story inside that story, and how General Dwight D. Eisenhower, the leader of the Allied troops in command, how he responded to the Nazi general standing in front of him, basically asking for pity and respect. He got none. You will love hearing what Ike Eisenhower did to him on this date, 1945. Once again, back to our current situation, Iran. And Secretary of State Rubio says, keep in mind, Iran does, and by Iran, he's talking about the regime, does not care what happens to the people.
Look, they're suffering devastating damage to their economy. You're right, but it's not that they're able to withstand pressure, it's that they don't care that their people are suffering. You understand, right?
Yep.
There's a difference between we can withstand pressure and we actually don't care. Now, I think there are people in their system that care more than others. You know, some of the elected people that you see, some of the people you see on television with the suits on, you know, those guys care because they know at the end of the day they have to live in the reality. And then you have another element of their government, the clerics, the IRGC types, who probably are more immune to that and care less. They're more interested in regime survival at all costs.
Regime survival and personal survival at all cost. So Secretary of State Rubio is saying that's what we're going to see. In the meantime, our NATO ambassador that's helping oversee and work on some of these issues and try to bring some resolution to it, our NATO ambassador has come forward, and he wants you to hear this. Keep in mind, he's ambassador to NATO, Matt Whitaker.
I've had a lot of conversations with the Germans. Obviously, President Trump is at all times seeing what's in the interest of the American people,
yes,
and seeing how we need to use our resources.
Yes.
It's not just a matter of protecting our allies or somehow investing American taxpayer dollars in Europe for their security. It is about, the United States being able to, one, do what we've done in Iran to change dramatically the state of play in the Gulf, and to also make sure that we protect our homeland, to protect our other interests around the globe.
Perfect. That's exactly what a president should be doing. I'm sorry, I started to ask you listening Joe Biden. And I mean this in all sincerity. He's probably incapable of understanding anything at this point. assuming he's even in the loop. He may be watching Woody Pecker cartoons. And that's a perfect place for him to be. And Secretary of State Rubio pointing out, look, we are backing off the strait. We're no longer going to escort naval or any kind of ships through container, oil, or whatever else, but we're not going to allow the Iranian ports to be entered or exited. And we will not fire upon Iran unless...
Now, what's really important for you to report and for everyone to understand is this is not an offensive operation. This is a defensive operation. And what that means is very simple. There's no shooting unless we're shot at first. Okay, we're not attacking them. But if they're attacking us or they're attacking a ship, you need to respond to that. You're not going to let some fast boat come up on the ship and shoot it up. We're going to respond to it, and we've been successful at it. I don't know what the exact number is, but I know a number of those fast boats have now been targeted, and will continue to be. If they pose a threat to our forces, we'll shoot down drones, we'll shoot down missiles, but it's defensive in nature. This is defensive. So if you hear stories about attacks and launching of firing back and forth, it's not back and forth. We are only responding if attacked first. This is a defensive operation, and that's what's occurring here.
And that, I can't stress to you enough, still puts our troops downrange in great danger. We won't shoot at them until they shoot at us. In other words, they're going to get the first strike. We hopefully will be able to blunt it, and we will immediately respond overwhelmingly. Today, the Pope received the American Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, in the Vatican, and they obviously were discussing all international conflicts and the strong relationship between the Vatican and the U.S., so it should be considered a successful meeting. But again, Secretary of State Rubio asked the question that anyone of any sane mind would raise.
The president basically said is that Iran can't have a nuclear weapon because they would use it against places that have a lot of Catholics and Christians and others for that matter. It goes back to the central point. I think the president, without trying to speak for him, but I think I can characterize it this way. He doesn't understand why anybody, leave aside the Pope, the president, and I, for that matter, I think most people, I cannot understand why anyone would think that it's a good idea for Iran to ever have a nuclear weapon. Look what they're doing with the Straits right now. They're holding the whole world hostage. They have these sailors, on commercial ships that are going to starve to death out there. They don't care. They don't care that this is melting down the economies around the world, even of their own allies. This is what they're doing with the Straits. What do you think they would do if they had a nuclear weapon? They would hold the world hostage with that nuclear weapon. That's what they would do. They would do exactly to the world with a nuclear weapon what they're doing now with the Straits. And I think the president's point is how anyone cannot see that as an unacceptable outcome and an unacceptable risk is beyond him. It's puzzling. And someone has to do something about it.
Oh, I'm
sorry. The difference between this president and like the 6 presidents that preceded him were that he's the only one that's actually been willing to do something about it. Everyone says Iran can't have a nuclear weapon, but you got to do something about it at some point. And he's been willing to address that threat. And that's what he promised he would do when he got elected, by the way, is address threats like this.
And I'm sorry, I'm going to have to disagree with the Secretary of State Rubio, or let me re-emphasize when he says to all of this that anyone's willing to have Iran have a nuclear capability. It's puzzling. No, it's not puzzling. You're an idiot. You're an idiot. You put yourself in harm's way, and I guarantee you'd be asking, protect me, protect me, protect me. In the meantime, Trump is ready to open another military front. This time the focus, the Mexican drug cartel.
Tonight, 6 U.S. officials briefed on the matter tell NBC News the Trump administration is considering using drone strikes against the Mexican drug cartels that are importing deadly fentanyl into the United States. The officials told us no final decisions have been made, and they said the administration is hoping for Mexico's cooperation. But they say it has not ruled out unilateral action. Acting Drug Enforcement Administrator Derek Maltz told me in a text exchange this week that all options should be on the table because drug cartels have killed more Americans than Al-Qaeda and ISIS. The Mexican president responding to our reporting today.
Nos coordinamos, colaboramos,
We've always said we do not agree. First, because we're not in agreement with any military intervention, she says, adding it would not solve anything. President Trump paved the way for military action when his government designated Mexican drug cartels as terrorist organizations.
They are terrorist organizations. As you heard him point out, they have killed more people in our nation than we've had in other actions. So they're going to continue to go after the Sinaloa cartel, the Jalisco New Generation cartel, trying to control trafficking routes and cut into their distribution networks that reach into 200 U.S. cities. You have a child or a grandchild, 10, 11 years old. They're not messing in drugs. They're not planning on doing it. But along the line, the people they fall in with might be experimenting with drugs. And they decide to go ahead and try one. And it's laced with fentanyl. One try, and they're dead. The Mexican leadership, I believe this in my heart, I truly do. The legitimate Mexican leadership that wants to be free of this, they welcome what Trump's doing, but they don't dare say that in the public. Sheinbaum, she is already bowing down to the cartel because she knows they will come in and take her away. And you'll find her hanging from a bridge. NBC reports on what the drug fight involves.
We recently spent a day with the DEA in the Phoenix division, where 60% of the fentanyl enters the U.S.
So this is our drug vault.
And where a top DEA official says the new intelligence gathered by the CIA has been helping.
So now we get the intelligence community involved and the Department of Defense, and all of us working together can target and eliminate the threat.
With tens of thousands of Americans dying each year from fentanyl coming in mostly from Mexico, the idea of American military action against drug cartels has long been contemplated. Even fictionalized in the 2015 film Sicario.
What are the rules of engagement? Weapons free, my friend.
Drone strikes could target cartel leaders, their security forces, and their manufacturing facilities. Similar to how the U.S. used Reaper drones in the Middle East and South Asia, this Taliban drug facility in Afghanistan destroyed in a split second by 4 500-pound guided bombs. But many experts say U.S. military action without Mexico's consent would spark outrage in Mexico and cripple cooperation. They also question whether it would work to stop the flow of drugs. U.S. drug warriors say it's time to raise the cost to the drug cartels.
Yeah, it is.
Cartels at their root are evil.
All right, let me leave you with some good news. Caroline Levitt has had her baby. It's just announced Vivian, her daughter, baby, and said Vivian and her big brother are playfully adjusting to new life. Congratulations. Coming up, a nation that wants to ban meat. Yes. And the story behind the story. Lock and load. Ready on the right.
You are listening to Larry Connors, USA.
Another day must be another roofer in town. And John Beal and I were talking. He said, you know, every time you turn around, there's a new roofing company. Many of them have no idea what they're doing, and the statistics show that many will be out of business within 2 to 5 years. Who are you going to call to help you then? You need to remember only one name, John Beal. John Beal Roofing. You have a problem, he can take care of it. And we'll be here for you. John Beal Roofing. Call 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF. Spring weather has everyone sneezing, even inside their home or building. Instead of saying Gesundheit, call Wellington Environmental to perform air tests to determine if mold levels are too high. Gesundheit is the same as saying bless you after someone sneezes, the German word meaning wishing you good health. Wellington Environmental can perform air testing that is simple, fast, and can identify issues keeping you from having good health. Wellington does the same for hospitals and nursing homes for indoor concerns. Give them a call. It's simple. 314-644-4930. 644-4930. Tell Cindy, I need air sampling. They've seen it all. They can help you. Next time you hear Gesundheit, think Wellington. Wellington Environmental. Be well with Wellington. True comfort is something you should feel every day in your home. It's the quiet of your mornings, the consistency of your indoor temperature, the way your home feels season after season. With Renewal by Andersen, from consultation through installation, everything is handled by one experienced team, built around your home, your schedule. Our exclusive Fibrex material, stronger than vinyl, built for extreme temperatures. And right now, you can save 20% off your entire project. Plus, take an additional $100 off every window and door, up to $1,000. 20% off the entire project. Flexible financing is available, but you need to call by April 30th. 877-WINDOWS. RenewalByAndersen.com. 877-WINDOWS. RenewalByAndersen.com. It's that time of season when families, businesses are moving. For local or long distance, I endorse McGuire Moving. Get a date set soon before the schedules are booked. 314-241-0600. 241-0600. McGuire is constantly giving back to our veterans, such as Support Dogs for Our Brave. So with McGuire, you're getting excellent service and helping our vets. McGuireMoving.com.
This is News Talk STL.
I see the bad moon rising. I see trouble on the way. I see earthquakes and lightning. I see bad times today. Don't go around tonight.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Welcome back. I want you to listen to me. Are you listening? Are you listening? This sounds like something out of a dystopian novel. Amsterdam, the capital of Dutch land, has reportedly become the first capital city in the world to ban public ads for meat and fossil fuels. They want to wipe out burgers, gas-powered cars, airline promotion from billboards, tram stops, and metro stations. It's all about reducing CO2. Well, that brings us to our guest, Gregory Wrightstone, a geologist, executive director of the CO2 Coalition, author of A Very Convenient Warming, How Modest Warming and More CO2 Are Building Humanity, Benefiting Humanity. Gregory, welcome aboard again, sir.
Yeah, good. This is actually timely for me. My book, my last book was published in Dutch in 2024, and I did a speaking tour.
You set this fire. Is that what you're telling me?
Oh, my goodness. And when I was there, it was interesting. They were proposing, the Dutch Netherlands were proposing to kill 50% of all their livestock, mainly sheep and cattle.
Right.
They were going to do it. And there was a referendum while I was there, a vote. And boy, they got beat down. The people didn't want it.
And let me remind the Let me remind the public quickly why they wanted to kill all the cattle and sheep, because of flatulation. They burp and they fart, and they're worried about those gases.
Yeah, well, at the risk of alienating you and correcting the host, it's really not about flatulation.
Well, I know it's
from
not.
The other end. It's belching.
Yeah.
But they belch methane, which is a greenhouse gas. But the greenhouse warming effect of methane is incredibly small.
I don't mind you. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I
don't mind you correcting me.
If you look, okay, but it's belching, and if we look at excuse me here, if we look at the warming effect of methane, if we killed all of Earth's cattle today, the amount of warming averted would be, I hope you're sitting down, 0.04 degrees Celsius. That's 0.04 of a degree Celsius of warming that would be averted by killing every single cow and steer on the earth.
But wouldn't that not make the world a better place? Wouldn't it make it a world a better place?
Heck no. What they do is turn otherwise indigestible grasses and cellulose into beneficial meats for us to use. High density proteins that feed the world, because we can't eat grass. These are ruminants that eat the grass and digest it And during that process of digestion, there's fermentation that goes on that creates the methane.
No.
But the good news here, again, is this incredibly small amount of warming. And the other good news is methane actually only has a life of about 11 years. And in that time, it breaks down into water and carbon dioxide. And so they're trying all these, like I said before, bat poop crazy things that they're trying to do with killing sheep, killing wildlife. And it's the methane, this campaign, it's built on an exaggeration of methane's very small warming effect.
But
what they're doing is turning an ordinarily esoteric interest in atmospheric physics
I'm going to have to
into
counter
headlines
you,
of climate doom.
I'm going to have to counter you. The Green Left Party leader says the climate crisis is very urgent. I mean, if you want to be leading in climate policies and you rent out your walls to exactly the opposite, what are you doing? She's talking about the advertising.
Yeah, well, they get so many things wrong. This is another fallacy, is that warming is bad. Warming has historically been really, really, really good.
All right.
And there's a reason that so many people from the northern United States are moving to Texas, South Carolina, and Florida. Those are the top 3 destinations. It's a lot warmer here.
Yeah.
I'm in Florida. I'm sitting out on my lanai. It's about 86 right now, and I'm loving it. I do my workout here.
Well, I love it.
And it's great.
And I know you're on a tight schedule. You got another interview coming up. I do not like to disobey your orders, so you need to interview you ended the interview at this point. Is that right?
Yes, sir. And
okay.
But you could, again, my book is Convenient Warming. If you just search for those 2 words, Convenient Warming. So I will tell your listeners, life is good and getting better.
Amen.
You can learn more at A Very Convenient Warming. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gregory Wrightstone, and we appreciate his time. We had him sandwiched in between another program's interview, and I do not ever like stepping on an interviewer following us because I've been stepped on enough, and I don't like it. So we try to adhere to his time mark to get him off, and we just did. I hope it worked out fine. Now, let me go deeper into this since we don't have him with us. I want to keep this in mind. We're talking about in Amsterdam. This is not Switzerland. That's Greta Thunberg. But it's all the same kind of mindless thinking. And I say mindless thinking. It's just a cause. It's a trend. Let me repeat again what they're doing in Amsterdam. They are basically going to do everything they can to ban public ads. Just the public ads for meat and fossil fuels, much less kill the cattle, and stop fossil fuel usage. So they're going to be wiping out burgers, gas-powered cars, airline promotions from billboards, train stops, and metric stations. They want that to just disappear from your eyes. There'll be no video, no pictures of that. You know what this reminds me of? Soylent Green. Did you ever see that movie? I think it was released back in the 60s. I haven't had time to double check on my facts, but Soylent Green, presented through a prism and the photographer, everything was shaded green because they had done everything they can to try to control the earth, and they had killed all the animals. They thought they were saving the atmosphere. And you know what they were eating? They were eating each other. When someone would die, and in their dying moments, if they had a chance, they went into a big hall for a theater, and they would see pictures of wildflowers and mountains and streams running as they exist today, and that was considered to be things of the past, and let them see and revel in those things. And then they would die, and they would take their bodies, turn it into a processed food, and cannibalize. You haven't seen the movie? I strongly suggest you pull it up. Now, with what the Dutch Meat Association is doing in response, they blast this ban as, I quote, an undesirable way to influence consumer behavior, warning that meat production essential nutrients or provides essential nutrients and should remain visible and accessible. Amen. Amen. There are times I would like a steak. Other times I'll eat fish. Other times I'll eat veggies. Give me the choice. But they want to drive the cattle industry out, demolish it, and the sheep and everything else. And meanwhile, travel industry leaders say this restrictions is going to unfairly target businesses and a lot of those who might be wanting to go a trip to Amsterdam. I don't mean just to walk through the red light district. That's a pollution when you get down to it. But they're going to back out of their trips. Why should they go there where can't even pick up a burger, can't order a steak? Oh, you can get a plant-based steak. Oh, that will suffice you. The Dutch Association of Travel Agents and Tour Operators calling the ban on airline advertising, just airline advertising, as disproportionate to commercial freedom. Freedom. That's a word in the Netherlands they're walking away from. Switzerland, Dutchland, Amsterdam in particular, and others. And yet I believe there are many that live in those areas. They don't like this one bit. Well, they put apparently some people in power that were going to push this agenda. These are the same kinds of lies that were peddled upon the American people, and a lot of, quote, American people bought into it. Hook, line, and sinker. We got to get rid of all the gas cars. How's that going for you? Yeah, there are a lot of cars on the road that are electric. Some look very nice, I would say, very well styled. I happened to take an Uber to work the other day. It was a Ford Mustang, very slick, very nice. He gets about 400 plus miles on his car, but every night he recharges. He does not take long road trips. And I said, if you took a long road trip and you got down to, 20%, how long would it take you to recharge it when you stopped? I said, maybe an hour. I don't want to stop on a road trip for an hour. I want to fill up the gas and keep going. And the state of California has put itself in this position. I told you that yesterday, the last oil ship headed for California coming through the Strait of Hormuz arrived in the port of San Diego or California yesterday, and 2 million barrels of oil. That's the last oil they're getting for who knows how long. And they've got all the oil resources in California and off the shore, but the environmentalists shut them down. They're going to pay the price now. Coming up, the story behind the story. It was on this date, 1945, that Germany officially surrendered unconditionally. But there's still another part of the story I really want to focus on. Not the war and the ending of the war, but how President, or at that time, General Commander of the Allied Forces, Ike, treated the Nazis.
You can connect with Larry on Twitter at Larry Connors USA.
I want to share something with you. Cooking a pizza using coal creates an amazing pizza. Only one place to get it, Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in Chesterfield. Of course, they offer a wide variety of pasta, but you just visit the website NapoliSTL.com, dine in or take out, and get ready for patio season. Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in Chesterfield Valley. Try it. You can thank me later. So many times, Vincent's Jewelers has helped me surprise someone special. Vincent's locally owned can do the same for you, and you don't have to break the bank to get something really nice, maybe even customized. The smile you're going to get back from that special someone, priceless. Check Vincent'sJewelers.com every day because new items are arriving and there are special deals. Vincent's, my only jeweler. Vincent'sJewelers.com. Vincent'sJewelers.com. True comfort is something you should feel every day in your home. It's the quiet of your mornings, the consistency of your indoor temperature, the way your home feels season after season. With Renewal by Andersen, from consultation through installation, everything is handled by one experienced team, built around your home, your schedule. Our exclusive Fibrex material, stronger than vinyl, built for extreme temperatures. And right now, you can save 20% off your entire project. Plus, take an additional $100 off every window and door, up to $1,000. 20% off the entire project. Flexible financing is available, but you need to call by April 30th. 877-WINDOWS. RenewalByAnderson.com. 877-WINDOWS. RenewalByAnderson.com. When insurance companies know you're represented by Onder Law, they know Onder is not going to let you be pushed around. Their reputation is built on years of courtroom battles. If you suffer an injury or damage to your property, serve the insurance company notice. You have Onder Law on your side, a St. Louis firm you can trust to protect you at every term. Don't settle for less. You want to win? Believe me, Onder wins. Onder, O-N-D-E-R, onderlaw.com.
This is News Talk STL.
Now this nation that I love is falling under attack. A mighty sucker punch came flying in from somewhere in the back. Soon as we could see clearly through our big black eye, man, we lit up your world like the 4th of July. Hey, Uncle Sam, put your name at the top of his list, and a statue of Liberty started shaking her fist, and an eagle will fly, and it's gonna be here when you hear Mother Freedom start ringing her bell, and it'll feel like the whole wide world is raining down on you.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Now, Larry Connors with the story behind the story.
This year they say there are 800,000 pairs of boots standing heel to heel, waiting for the Führer's final speech. And the high spot comes when, after a detailed review of Nazi achievements, Hitler cries, "My life's fight has not been in vain."
Indem ich euch ihre Blicke weise ich, mein Lebenskampf ist nicht umsonst gekämpft. Sein Sowjetzeichen soll er vor sich hertragen und wir werden in unserem Zeichen wieder siegen.
That's kind of a frightening sound, a recording of the Fuhrer addressing thousands and thousands of his troops. And, of course, that included the young people that are all part of his operation. Indoctrinated, deeply indoctrinated, and believed and preached to. You are superior to everyone if they're not a Jew. I mean, if they're not a German. And in particular, the Jews were to be disgusted and extinguished, which he was very good at doing it. I want to remind you of something. This is an ironic twist of fate, which on one hand would deny explanation. George Soros, big leftist Marxist contender, supplying all the socialist programs, the progressives, buying up stations across the nation so he can promote a socialist, Marxist, progressive program against on all of these stations, and some exist in St. Louis. That includes KMOX. It was owned by CBS. Went into bankruptcy trying to get rid of its stations. Odyssey bought it, and then Soros ends up buying it because Odyssey goes into bankruptcy. He was born a Jew, and his family smuggled them out. And he basically denounced Judaism because he didn't want to be connected because of fear of being executed at the time. But then once he's free and has a chance to have a new life, Why would he revert back to controlling and dictating, which is what he wants to do? And that's where he spends all his money. And his son, who is succeeding him, apparently is even worse. That's why we tell you on this station, we are locally owned. We do not follow the corporate lead, and in fact, we're George Soros free. It's printed on the windows outside our studios. Soros free. I had somebody stop me one time. What's that mean? A certain odorizer or something? I said, no. And yet at the same time it is. Keeping the stink out of our studio. But again, it was on this date that the German Nazi commander did sign the unconditional surrender of Germany. But a lot of lives have been lost. Normandy, obviously. Normandy was a big part of the campaign.
June 6th, 1944. Early morning. Thousands of boats embarked from England, headed to the French coast of Normandy. 2 years in the making, it's an Allied operation to take back France from the Germans. They call it Overlord.
Rarely in history will you find a time where these major powers are all mobilized almost to the full extent of their strength to have this confrontation over what is to happen with the Normandy invasion.
Allied soldiers will face a territory that the Germans have occupied for 4 years. Caen, Cherbourg, Saint-Lô, all the great cities of Normandy are under Nazi control. The landing zone chosen is 80 kilometers long. Placed under the command of U.S. General Eisenhower, the troops will land on 5 sectors. To the west, the Utah and Omaha beaches will be taken by the Americans. To the east, the Gold, Juno, and Sword beaches by the British and Canadians.
That is one of my regrets in life. I've yet to be standing on the beaches of Normandy and imagining the blood that was shed there. You've seen it powerfully shown in Saving Private Ryan. You've seen it in other cases. The war footage when it shows men falling as they come out of their amphibious ships, they're probably dead or dying. And a lot of the ships got hung up on coral reef, and so when they opened the gates, men were stepping off into water that was above their head, and they were weighted down with 90-plus pounds of equipment. And, of course, then you had the Battle of the Bulge. You had other battles throughout Germany. And the Blitzkrieg that was underway against London. Then you had the battle in the Pacific. All of this, of course, the Pacific was because of Japan, but all across Europe was German. And then came a meeting that actually began yesterday, 1945.
May 6th, 1945, Reims, France. A dull, gray, rainy day. In a small red brick schoolhouse, the fate of the world was being decided. This was the supreme headquarters of the Allied Expeditionary Force, SHAEF. Outside, the streets were lined with military police. Inside, the air was thick with cigarette smoke and nervous energy. Generals from America, Britain, Russia, and France were waiting. They checked their watches. They drank bad coffee. They waited. And then, a car pulled up. Out stepped a man who looked like the perfect Prussian villain, Colonel General Alfred Jodl, the chief of operations of the German High Command, Hitler's right-hand man for 6 years. The man who had signed the orders to bomb London, to invade Russia, to execute commandos. He walked into the schoolhouse. He held his head high. He wore his monocle. His uniform was crisp. His iron cross hung around his neck. He walked with the arrogance of a man who still believed he was superior.
It wasn't. He was also the architect for the Holocaust. Yes, there is more to the story behind the story.
You are listening to Larry Connors, USA.
Do you know why I endorse Cafe Napoli, all the locations? Visit any of them, and you will quickly appreciate the quality of food, service, atmosphere. So maybe I'll see you at Cafe Napoli in Clayton, Napoli Kirkwood, Napoli 2 in Town and Country, Napoli 3 in St. Charles, right next door to Napoli C. Or maybe you'll find me at Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in the Chesterfield Valley. Now you know why I endorse Napoli, NapoliSTL.com.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Now, the end of the story behind the story.
He expected to be treated like a gentleman. He expected to meet with his equal, the Supreme Commander, General Dwight D. Eisenhower. He expected to sit down, drink brandy, and negotiate a soldier's peace. He was wrong. Eisenhower was sitting in his office down the hall. He saw Jodl arrive, but Eisenhower didn't stand up. He didn't walk out to greet him. Instead, he turned to his aide and gave an order that shattered the German ego. I will not see him. I will not speak to him, and I will not shake his hand. Tell him he is here to sign, not to talk. For the next 24 hours, General Jodl was left to sweat. He was treated not as a dignitary but as a criminal, and when he tried to play games, Eisenhower delivered a threat so brutal it forced the Germans to their knees.
He did not get the reception he thought he would be entitled to as the leading commandant of the opposing army, even though it was a surrender. And he tried to basically plea and beg and show his case.
He was escorted into the war room. It was a large room, formerly a classroom. Reims was a school. There was a large ping-pong table in the middle, covered with a green cloth. This would be the surrender table. Jodl looked around. "Where is General Eisenhower?" he asked. The American officer replied, "General Eisenhower is not here. You will deal with General Smith." Jodl was insulted. He was a colonel general. He outranked Smith. He demanded to see the Supreme Commander. The request was denied. Eisenhower stayed in his private office behind a closed door. He refused to breathe the same air as the Nazi general until the war was officially over. It was a calculated insult. It told Jodl, "You are not a head of state. You are a prisoner." The negotiations began. Or rather, the argument began. Jodl sat at the table. He played his cards. "We are willing to surrender to the West," he said, "but we cannot order our troops in the East to stop fighting. They are terrified of the Red Army." He proposed a phased surrender. "Let us surrender to you Americans now, but give us 48 hours to move our troops out of Russia." It was a trick. Jodl wanted to use those 48 hours to save the panzer divisions so they could maybe fight again later. He wanted to create a rift between America and Russia.
That was the intent, but it was never going to happen. And when he didn't meet with Ike, here's the kind of response he got.
Smith walked back into the war room. He didn't sit down. He stood over Jodl. He delivered Eisenhower's message. "General Eisenhower says no. No delays, no phases, no deals." Jodl tried to interrupt. "But General," Smith slammed his hand on the table, "listen to me. The Supreme Commander has ordered. You will sign the unconditional surrender immediately. If you do not sign, he will order the Allied lines to be closed." Jodl froze. "Closed?" "Yes," Smith said. "We will seal the Western Front. We will not let a single German soldier cross into our lines. We will force them back. We will leave them to the Russians. And then, the final blow. And we will stop accepting German refugees." This was the checkmate. Millions of German civilians were fleeing west. If Eisenhower closed the border, They would be trapped between the Americans and the Soviets. They would be slaughtered. Eisenhower was effectively saying...
So Jodl actually began to try to ask, give us some pity, give us some kind of pity.
He stood there, the architect of the Holocaust, asking for sympathy. The room went cold. Nobody answered him. Nobody nodded. They just stared at him with stone faces. Jodl realized he wasn't going to get any sympathy here. He snapped a salute, and he turned to leave. But before he could leave the building, Jodl was told, "General Eisenhower will see you now." Jodl straightened up. He thought, "Finally, soldier to soldier, he will respect me." He walked down the hall to Eisenhower's office.
He walked down the hall, and then what happened once he got inside with Ike?
2:41 a.m., May 7th, 1945. The cameras were brought in. The lights were bright. Reporters stood on chairs to get a view. Jodl sat at the table. Next to him was Admiral Friedeberg. Opposite them sat Bedell Smith, representing Eisenhower, a French general, a Russian general. The document was placed in front of Jodl. Act of military surrender. It was short, simple. We, the undersigned, surrender unconditionally, all forces. Jodl picked up a pen. His hand was shaking slightly. He signed his name, Alfred Jodl.
And actually at that point, the war ended with a drop of ink. Only then did Ike agree to see him. He marched smartly into Ike's office, stood at attention, saluted. Ike did not stand, did not salute him. Basically demeaned him in every way possible, and at the worst, refused to even shake his hand. He was fully embarrassed, as he should be. And when he went to leave, he again clicked his heels together and saluted Ike, but Ike would not even give a salute. He just kind of did a wave. You were dismissed. I love the way he treated. Our story behind the story tomorrow, the amazing story of Ted Turner and CNN he built. Second hour to come, remember our pledge, one nation under God.
You can hear podcasts of this program at Larry Connors USA Facebook. Larry Connors USA Facebook.
John Bill Roofing reminds you we are in the stormy season, and that means if you have even the smallest leak in your roof, you could soon have a much bigger issue. Call the John Bill to make sure that your biggest investment is protected. That call can save you major dollars. If you do get hit during a storm, John Bill has a rapid response team. Call 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF, John Bill. There's only one place you can get pizza cooked over coals, Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in Chesterfield Valley. Of course, Napoli Brothers has a great selection of pasta dishes. Between the pizza and pasta, trust me, you will not leave hungry. Then, a few doors down, Lit Cigar Lounge, a wide variety of quality cigars, each offering a unique smoke. That cigar, some premium whiskey, all you need to do is enjoy. Lit Cigar Lounge and Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta, Chesterfield Valley. It's that time of season when families, businesses are moving. For local or long distance, I endorse McGuire Moving. Get a date set soon before the schedules are booked. 314-241-0600. 241-0600. McGuire is constantly giving back to our veterans, such as Support Dogs for Our Brave. So with McGuire, you're getting excellent service and helping our vets. McGuireMoving.com. So many times, Vincent's Jewelers has helped me surprise someone special. Vincent's locally owned can do the same for you, and you don't have to break the bank to get something really nice, maybe even customized. The smile you're going to get back from that special someone, priceless. Check Vincent'sJewelers.com every day because new items are arriving and there are special deals. Vincent's, my only jeweler. Vincent'sJewelers.com. VincentsJewelers.com. VincentsJewelers.com. Let's be candid, honest. No out-of-state law firm can represent you better than Onder Law, O-N-D-E-R. Hometown roots, attorneys living right here with you and your family. When you suffer an injury because someone else was negligent, Onder Law will make sure the other party takes full responsibility. You'll get full compensation, not a backroom deal worked out with some insurance companies. And of course, we're moving into the stormy season. And again, when you have a legitimate claim, you should be properly compensated. Onder Law does not toy around with adjusters, investigators, lawyers trained to cheat you of what is rightfully yours. Onder Law has already recovered millions for families across Missouri and Illinois. Onder wins. Not just a catchy phrase, it's a fact. So I'll repeat it. Onder wins. OnderLaw.com. O-N-D-E-R. OnderLaw.com. Wins.
This is News Talk STL.
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Go ahead. It's the job of the California governor to protect every single Californian. The sanctuary state policy is designed to make sure that our state resources, the taxpayer dollars, the public servants that we have, are focusing on doing their jobs, which is not cooperating with the federal immigration authorities. These are Californians. They contribute to our economy. They pay taxes, and they're one of the only ways that our state has been growing in recent years.
There, she said it out loud. She is out loud. She's a Democrat candidate, Katie Porter, for the governor's position, acknowledging we count on illegals. They're the only reason we're growing in the state of California. And of course, they want them in there. So when it comes to census counting, we can show we have a bigger population, and we believe that these illegals will in turn around and vote for us. That's the whole idea. I mean, that's their game plan. It's been their game plan from the beginning. They want to make sure that they can stay in control. And the way they do that is, again, to try to control the voting. And there are so many questions being raised about the voting now. You just cannot imagine. Because if you start looking at what's happening, not just in California, but all the blue sanctuary cities and states, they are looking for ways to, how do we possibly get a chance to raise our standards by going to the people and getting them to vote for us. You're not going to get them to do that because they want nothing to do with you. And yet they're going to continue. In fact, there's talk about that maybe Trump is considering an amnesty-type program. Now, before you start jumping off the cliff over this, we will try to take a look at it and break it down for you. Thank you for joining us for hour number 2, Larry Connors USA, starting right here on May 7, 2026. And this date, as we were pointing out in the previous year, marks the date of the official German unconditional surrender. If you missed that story, I really encourage you to go back and pull up our first hour. Our podcast of every program are available at NewsTalkSTL and available at LarryConnorsUSA.com and Larry Connors USA Facebook. And I'll remind you again that when we are on the air, we are streaming video. You can watch the program. I encourage you to do so, because it's a great way to see what's going on. And what happens in some cases, obviously, is we have people at this point that do not understand what is at stake. There's not much I can do to help people at that point. If they don't understand how much is at stake in this nation, they are lost. Either they're clueless or they're not paying attention. And I don't know which is worse. The ones who are clueless, the ones not paying attention, will be easily sucked up into the vacuum of the leftist vortex of lies and more lies and more lies. But here is a Democrat Porter, Katie Porter, saying illegals are the backbone of California. We want them to be here. And on the debate stage, every one of those Democrats basically acknowledge, yeah, we want to continue to be a sanctuary state, that we would do well to do that. It means good things for us. And it is not going to go well for them, but they don't care. They're basically putting, and she is saying the quiet part out loud to California residents. We don't care about you native-born Americans living in California. We care more about the illegals. And one of the governor candidates for California governor to replace Newsom, and the only reason he's not running, he's termed out. Plus, he's got his eyes on the Oval Office. God help us if that happens. But Tom Steyer is a billionaire that's throwing all kinds of money into this race. And he thinks he can win because he's got a lot of money to do it. Well, he might well, because there are enough people out there that are willing to suck up to him. And that's all a guy like that needs. Suck up to me. Because if you're here for me, then I can carry this out. When I look at what they're trying to do right now, we should all be offended by it. And I don't see even some of the leftist Democrats offended. They just, yeah, let's all go along to get along. Hey, welcome to hour number 2, Larry Connors USA. May 7, 2026. With Larry Connors USA every hour. You're not just going to get news, analysis, and commentary, but education. And in fact, later in this hour, a longtime Democrat, you're going to recognize the guy's name. Longtime Democrat. I believe he said he's been with the Democrat Party since 15 or 17, even before he could vote. He was out campaigning for a Democrat candidate. That's how much he believed Democrats are the answer. But now it looks at what happens and what's going on in his Democrat Party. And I might add the fact that he's also Jewish. But we got a lot of Democrats, quote, that are Jewish. Chuck Schumer, leader of the Senate, minority leader, thank God. Governor Pritzker, we had on yesterday. Illinois governor, he's Jewish. You didn't know that? Well, some people don't like him because he's Jewish. I don't like him because of his policies. I'm not going to dislike anyone because of their religious affiliation or their politics unless that involves destroying me and my family. And then, yeah, I got a break point with that guy. But you're going to hear from this longtime Democrat state basically this. I'm out. Democrats scare me. This is a long-standing Democrat saying Democrats scare me. And our Border Security Czar, Holman, is telling Sanctuary State Hochul in New York, and this goes for any sanctuary state, Governor Pritzker, and whomever ends up running the state of California, our border czar, Tom Holman.
Well, Governor Hochul, I'm not asking either. I said it, we're going to do it. No, she wants to sign legislation. She supports this legislation. It's going to lock us out of jails. It's going to end 287G agreements. And it's going to prevent us from arresting a criminal alien in the safety and security of a jail. We have partnerships in New York, throughout the state. Not everywhere, but she wants to end the partnerships we currently have, which means now we got to send a whole team to look for a criminal that we could have arrested in the safety and security of a jail, which is safer for the officers, safer for the aliens, certainly safer for the community. So you're forcing us into the neighborhoods to find this person, which means since we lost the efficiencies of the jails that you want to lock us out of, now we got to send a whole team out there to find this person. So, of course, we're going to increase manpower a lot. And not only that, she says she wants to protect the migrant communities. Really? Because now we arrest an illegal alien. We can't rent a bed from any of the sheriffs in New York State. So what are we going to do? We're going to arrest that illegal alien. We're going to fly them to Texas, Arizona, to one of our detention facilities there, away from their families, away from their attorneys. This is what we have to do because she forces in this position. And we're going to do it. They're not going to stop us. They can put all the roadblocks they want, but we're going to do this job.
We're going to do the job, as well they should. We do not want these people to continue to destroy our nation because they think they should have rights like any and everyone else, which brings me to the point I was raising earlier. There is talk that maybe there will be a way that an argument underway that we will find a way to bring about basically an opportunity for the left to find a way to work with the right. And when I say the left, I'm talking about sensible right and sensible left as well, to find an amnesty program. This talk continues to escalate. Now, don't go off the deep cliff on this thing. Ronald Reagan had done the same thing, thinking it would be the last time. But Holman points out that Trump is currently being lobbied by cabinet members of his own cabinet. We need to kind of approve a migrant amnesty. And Holman said Trump is talking to advisors about trying to come up with some form of legal status for many illegal immigrants. There is a pro-migration survey, a reporter at CBS, who asked Holman directly, would you support a compromise, sir, that involves giving legal status, amnesty, to the millions who are here illegally but otherwise law-abiding? And Holman said, I'm not going to get ahead of the president on that. That I agree. He said, I work for the president. The reporter, who is a Colombian-born migrant reporter, interrupted to ask, well, something has to be done to address that population, talking about the illegal migrant, or is it a solution to deport them all? And again, Holman said, I'm not going to get ahead of the president. He is talking to various members of his cabinet. Discussions are underway. I'm involved in some, but not others. I'm not going to get ahead of the president. Many different polls show that Trump's base does strongly oppose amnesty and illegal migration. But opposition is increasingly building on recognition that migration moves money from ordinary people towards the elite in the stock market. You know, they're looking at the dollar signs again instead of the people behind it. And polls show that Trump base and his base increasingly oppose legalized migration. The Congress grants to business donors who want to profit from additional wage-cutting migrant workers, taxpayer consumers, apartment-sharing renters. The president of the Oversight Project said, mass deportation is the glue that keeps our beautiful coalition together. But there are business groups bitterly opposing. Other investors obviously looking for cheap labor. And I can't stress to you enough, that's why Trump has made so many gains in the minority community, because they realize if they come in here, they're going to take the jobs we have. And that's true. They'll work cheaper. But if they're talking about those who are not committing crimes, maybe we should just look away. They broke the law coming into the country. If you work out any kind of amnesty program for it, then I want to start taxing them. I want them to pay, and they're going to have to do certain things to qualify. And they're going to have to work for citizenship, and they're going to have to learn the English language. If you went to France or Germany and you want to become a citizen of that nation, you damn well would be required to learn their language. In fact, you'd want to, so you know what people are saying about you as you walk past them. In the meantime, back to Iran, Trump continues to press for peace, but he's not giving up on the key issue.
Well, they're militarily defeated. In their own minds, maybe they don't know that, but I think they do because I deal with them. And we cannot ever let Iran have a nuclear weapon. But they are militarily defeated. They have no Navy. They have no Air Force. They have no anti-aircraft weaponry. They have no radar. They have no leaders. Their leaders are gone. It's very interesting because, you know, they make a deal and then they break it. Then they make a deal, they break it. It's a difficult group. But from a military standpoint, I mean, if we left today, it would take them 20 years to rebuild.
20 years to rebuild, but that is if someone's not coming in to help them. And that is if you keep in mind that every time they get goes to actually rebuilding their country for their people, as opposed to, again, trying to hold them down, put their boot on the back of their neck. Minnesota Congressman Emmer says right now Donald Trump is stronger than ever.
Educating kids, and it's important to be healthy and to be active and get out and compete and just expose yourself to as many sports and activities as you possibly can. I mean, just the interaction I had with all the kids today, getting able to throw a couple fastballs, do some pull-ups, just get out in the sunshine and the White House lawn was just an amazing experience. And I mean, I've always been a huge fan of President Trump, and I met him for the first time today.
Oh, is that your first time? Yeah, I didn't realize it. You acted like you were old buddies.
A dream come true. It's just like I'm riding this bliss in this moment, in this interview with you right now, and I just really don't quite understand the negativity or the pessimism he gets with the media and some of the population of this nation, because he's just such a patriotic guy, and he cares so much about everybody and just the health of this nation and the health of this world.
But the hate outweighs any good the man has done. The hate outweighs love of America. There's no way to counter that. I will go back and quote Martin Luther King Jr. Hate does not drive out hate. Love drives out hate. These folks on the other side, they're incapable of hate. They relish every assault attempt upon Donald Trump. I'll give you some more examples before we wrap up this hour. But Secretary of State Rubio making it very clear, we are not going to be firing on Iran unless they shoot at us first.
Now, what's really important for you to report and for everyone to understand is this is not an offensive operation. This is a defensive operation. And what that means is very simple. There's no shooting unless we're shot at first. Okay, we're not attacking them. But if they're attacking us or they're attacking a ship, you need to respond to that. You're not going to let some fast boat come up on the ship and shoot it up. We're going to respond to it, and we've been successful at it. I don't know what the exact number is, but I know a number of those fast boats have now been targeted, and will continue to be. If they pose a threat to our forces, we'll shoot down drones, we'll shoot down missiles, but it's defensive in nature. This is defensive. So if you hear stories about attacks and launching of firing back and forth, it's not back and forth. We are only responding if attacked first. This is a defensive operation, and that's what's occurring here.
Defensive. Trump had said we're no longer going to escort the ships through. We're going to continue to block the ports of Iran so nothing comes or goes directly from their port on their mainland or Clark Island, but we're not going to escort ships to the Strait. And everything may be good until Iran shoots at one of them or shoots at one of our Navy ships. And so far, they haven't. I think the message has been delivered. Doesn't mean that's going to hold up. More to come. Lock and load. Ready on the right.
You are listening to Larry Connors, USA.
Spring weather has everyone sneezing, even inside their home or building. Instead of saying Gesundheit, call Wellington Environmental to perform air tests to determine if mold levels are too high. Gesundheit is the same as saying bless you. after someone sneezes, the German word meaning wishing you good health. Wellington Environmental can perform air testing that is simple, fast, and can identify issues keeping you from having good health. Wellington does the same for hospitals and nursing homes for indoor concerns. Give them a call. It's simple. 314-644-4930. 644-4930. Tell Cindy, I need air sampling. They've seen it all. They can help you. Next time you hear Gesundheit, think Wellington. Wellington Environmental. Be well with Wellington. McGuire Moving is silver certified, which means they are great at relocating senior citizens. In fact, McGuire is a household name because McGuire understands the stress involved when moving older adults. So if you or family members need help moving, I highly recommend McGuire Moving. 314-241-0600. 241-0600. Get a free in-home estimate. McGuireMoving.com. John Bill Roofing reminds you we are in the stormy season, and that means if you have even the smallest leak in your roof, you could soon have a much bigger issue. Call the John Bill to make sure that your biggest investment is protected. That call can save you major dollars. If you do get hit during a storm, John Bill has a rapid response team. Call 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF, John Bill. So many times, Vincent's Jewelers has helped me surprise someone special. Vincent's locally owned can do the same for you, and you don't have to break the bank to get something really nice, maybe even customized. The smile you're going to get back from that special someone, priceless. Check Vincent'sJewelers.com every day because new items are arriving and there are special deals. Vincent's, my only jeweler. Vincent'sJewelers.com. Vincent'sJewelers.com.
This is News Talk STL. This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
I feel like I'm in 1932 Berlin at the standing up against what was going on. Not 1938. I'm not saying 1938, but in 1932, before the election of Hitler as chancellor, the universities were turning against Jews. If there was Israel, they'd have been turning against Israel. And I feel I'm one of the few people who am standing up against my old party. Look, I became a Democrat when I was 14 years old. I used to go with a loudspeaker and campaign for a guy named Philip Schuppler, who was running for assembly on the Democratic ticket. So I've been a Democrat for 70 years. I now am strongly opposed to that party. I want them defeated in every single election.
Amen, amen. Alan Dershowitz, Harvard Law Professor Emeritus, long-term Democrat, turning his back on the Democrat Party. And it's very clear, this is not the Democrat Party of yesterday. We all expect political parties to evolve. This one's disintegrated. I've been running a commentary today talking about how divided they are and what they're trying to do and how they get way over exaggerating on things. Now, Donald Trump is big about exaggerating as well, as I pointed out in the commentary. I was born in Texas. I was born with a BS degree. I'm capable of coming over the top on anyone on any lie or fabrication or exaggeration, believe me. Because in Texas, I mean, we've got the biggest of the big, and we got the smallest of the small. The longest of the long, the shortest of the short. It's always a superlative. It's not, but that's what we say. And the idiot left buys into this because if it came from their party leaders that they respect, they go along with it. And when former President Barack Obama, in an interview with Politico the other day, said, I disagree with this rift between Democrats, the Democrat base, or maybe he just said Democrats, and the far left. He said, I think they're closer together than what we're led to believe. Not listening to Dershowitz, he represents more the base of what they had. They're not any closer. They're farther apart. And he said, I think we'll all come together on Election Day. Yeah, right. He believes they're all already, even though they oppose each other. And even they have filed suit against a congressional PAC committee, Democrat PAC committee, because they believe they're supporting the wrong candidates. Their candidates are not progressive enough. He thinks they will all find a way to come together. On the other hand, political strategist James Carville of Louisiana, Cajun, who helped get Bill Clinton from the Arkansas White House all the way to the big house at Oval Office. He insists the Democrat Party is dysfunctional, fractured, and he compares the party to a bunch of clowns, cracked out clowns in a car, all smoking crack. Is that a reference to Biter Hunter? When have you heard from him lately? The last I saw that he filed lawsuit against the lawyers representing him. You know why? Because he hasn't paid them. Oh, surprise, surprise. He's no longer getting all the money from Burisma and everything else. But the Biden crime family syndicate has probably socked away a lot of money. I've not seen the mortgages go upside down or come after the Biden estates. They're probably already paid off. But there will be more to uncover. And I saw yesterday, and I'm trying to find where I saw it. Jerome tells me he saw this maybe predicted some time ago, or maybe it was official then, but the Department of Justice deciding it is not going to pursue charges against Dr. Fauci. What? You're not going to go after him for any charges, anything from perjury to criminal action above and beyond, and what he did to this nation? Now, the DOJ is under Acting Attorney General Blanche and basically under President Trump. But deep, deep down in the bowels, somebody is trying to put a fix in. Let's just forget Fauci. Let's forget it happened. You want to tell all of those who lost loved ones who died alone because their family could not be with them, and what we've done to our children and their education and maybe long-term health effects? When Fauci was lying every step of the way? Once again, Alan Dershowitz turning his back on that Democrat Party.
They are against America. They're against Israel. They're against Jews. And the leading people against the Jews are other Jews. Thank God for Christians and Muslims who support Israel. Israel cannot count on its Jewish population. Many support Israel. Most support Israel. But some of its most vociferous opponents, organizations like Jewish Voice for Peace, which isn't Jewish and doesn't have a voice and is against peace. But, they are leading the campaign against Israel, along with a group like the Neturei Karta, very, very ultra-Orthodox anti-Zionists who support Iran, who want Iran to get a nuclear bomb. These are just self-defeating, self-hating idiots. And I'm going to stand up against them. I'm 87 years old. I don't have the strength I had when I was 47, but I'm going to use every bit of strength I have to oppose the Democrats.
Good for him. Good for him. And I hope others join him. In the meantime, another example where the left leans right now. House Democrat leader, Congresswoman Promilia Yayapal, admitting, I've been talking to ambassadors from Mexico and other countries to get oil to Cuba. She said in January, Donald Trump signed an executive order declaring a national emergency over threats to the American people posed by Cuba. They were getting oil from Venezuela, remember? Trump put an end to that. And, of course, he wants to he has issued an executive order threatening tariffs on any country that does supply Cuba. Now, according to her, the crisis is beyond imagination. Just this past Friday, May 1st, Trump signed a broad executive order widening the sanctions, allowing new penalties similar to what we have for Iran and Russia, and against any foreign banks and firms dealing with Cuba. It also reinforces the ban on U.S. tourism. Oh, that's so sad. You won't be able to go to the communist nation anymore. I did think about, once it opened up again, going down just to see it, but I lost interest. I can get Cuban cigars through another route. Can't tell you, but I can. She said, I called these sanctions an economic bombing of the infrastructure of Cuba. Now, I raise a question. By me buying cigars through another route, Cuban Havana cigars, am I supporting Cuba? I'm supporting some of the people. I don't know who's at the top that might be taking some off the top. I'm sure the tobacco growers and the cigar makers are not getting that much money. Maybe I should do like a customs officer threatened to do to me one time when we came back from a trip to the Caribbean. Said, you buy Cuban cigars down there? And I didn't. I wanted to. I wanted to bring some home to my dad. He said, oh, I wish you had. He said, you know what I like to do? I like to take those cigars and cut them into 4-inch lengths. 4 inches? Get a roach clip. I could probably still smoke some of that thing. Maybe tape it together to start, see if it'll breathe through. And then you get another member who used to be a, quote, far-right commentator going left.
I care about affordability. I care about foreign interventions. I care about the border. I'm a non-woke moderate Democrat. I think the GOP needs to be destroyed. I think the corrupt criminal government of Trump needs to be slowed down. We need to impeach the orange. It's time to put this nigga in a peach. Trump needs to be placed inside of a crystal. He needs to be impeached. This fat orange, tiny hands needs to be impeached. And then in 28, no Vance, no Rubio. We have to burn down the whole party.
That is Nick Fuentes. Used to be far right. Now a moderate Democrat. I don't think that's moderate. That's what he calls himself. And he says Trump should be impeached and the GOP party destroyed. I don't see anything about that that is a moderate Democrat. As a Republican conservative, I don't really want to see the base Democrat party destroyed. I believe it's good for the country to have opposing parties, a check and balance. But the Democrat Party has been hijacked by the left, and now apparently a far-right Nick Fuentes has been hijacked. You imagine he's getting a little something? I would imagine he is. And then there are the continuing threats of violence against President Trump. And everybody says, I don't know why. Who's preaching for violence? The Democrat left. Stand by, please.
You can connect with Larry on Twitter at Larry Connors USA.
When insurance companies know you're represented by Under Law, they know Under is not going to let you be pushed around. Their reputation is built on years of courtroom battles. If you suffer an injury or damage to your property, serve the insurance company notice. You have Under Law on your side. A St. Louis firm you can trust to protect you at every term. Don't settle for less. You want to win? Believe me, Under wins. Under, O-N-D-R, underlaw.com. McGuire Moving is silver certified, which means they are great at relocating senior citizens. In fact, McGuire is a household name because McGuire understands the stress involved when moving older adults. So if you or family members need help moving, I highly recommend McGuire Moving. 314-241-0600. 241-0600. Get a free in-home estimate. McGuireMoving.com. When I have business clients or guests from out of town, I often take them to Cafe Napoli. I know they're going to enjoy any of the Napoli locations. Cafe Napoli in Clayton, Napoli 2 in Town and Country, Napoli 3 in St. Charles, next to Napoli C, Napoli Kirkwood, or Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in the Chesterfield Valley. Excellent food and intellectual conversation, if they bring the intellectual conversation. And NapoliSTL.com. NapoliSTL.com. You should know that when I endorse Wellington Environmental, it's because I believe and know they will do you right. Wellington takes pride in providing homeowners and businesses whatever they need. You need some dustless blasting, they will take care of that. You need some mold remediation, they can do that. They take pride in training their team to perform multiple services and having the equipment ready to get jobs finished. That's important to you. You make just one call, and you call a company that's been around for more than 35 years with more than 45 technicians in the field. Most of you know finding good workers, then having them show up on time could be difficult. Not for Wellington Environmental. They're there at the designated time, ready to go. Check them out to see what they could do for you. Dustless blasting or anything else you need. Wellington Environmental, 314-644-4930. 314-644-4930. Be well with Wellington.
This is News Talk STL.
Well, they used to make a living off of bathtub gin. When the hippie showed up, weed was in. Well, they profit off of weakness, and they always have. Now meth is the recipe for cold hard cash. Something's cooking and it just ain't right.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Welcome back. I have told you for years now, pay attention what is happening in Europe because it will come to our borders. And in particular, the illegal migration, illegal infiltration, or in some cases in Germany when they open the door and said, yeah, come on in. And of course, Joe Biden opened our southern border. Come on in. Thank you, Joe Biden. But what we've seen is changing the face of Europe. They do truly have no-go zones in various countries, in France, in England, and in Germany. And other countries are talking about building a border wall or fence to keep the illegals from entering their country. They don't want all the migrants. A lot of them come out of Africa. Russia helps them get there. They want to infiltrate because a lot of the folks coming in are jihadists, not just Muslim, but jihadists, or at least they're close enough to being radicalized. They're not coming to be part of the existing community to assimilate into the European culture. They're coming to destroy it and cause chaos. I want to read something to you in a report issued by Sebastian Gorka. He's a security editor at Breitbart News overseeing the National States Counterterrorism Strategy. The document reads this. Are you listening? Are you listening? The world is safer. The world is safer when Europe is strong. But Europe is greatly threatened and is both a terror target and an incubator of terrorist threats. Look how they responded, referenced NATO in helping the U.S. with the blockade of the Hormuz Strait. Oh, they talked about, said, we're going to talk about getting a group of willing partners to come together and help. They never did a thing other than jaw and drink brandy. That's it. Oh, and probably tea. Gorka continued to note terrorist groups like Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State's criminal gangs, even hybrid threats posed by rogue states have infiltrated Europe. In fact, adding that Europe allowed itself to become infiltrated, allowing the threat to surge. Does that not reflect what we've seen in this nation? We saw it happening in Europe, and we went ahead and thought, oh, yeah, that looks good. You're an idiot. You're an idiot. And he goes on to say, groups have freely explained Europe's weak borders and diminished counterterrorism resources are turning Europe into a permissive operating environment for plotting against Europeans and, of course, Americans. And he adds it's unacceptable that wealthy NATO allies can serve as financial, logistic, and recruitment hubs for terrorists. Europe, he said, still has an opportunity to change its individual and collective terrorism, that it recognizes this actual threat and takes action now. It is clear to all that well-organized hostile groups exploit open borders and related globalist ideas. Of course they would. If you were the leader of a terrorist group, isn't that where exactly you would be doing? Getting as many of your infiltrators, your cells, inside our nation? Oh, and then don't forget the anchor babies. That China has 1 million babies now in China who were born in the USA, which under our born on the soil ruling and acceptance in this nation, the only nation to do that, makes them an American. They can come back at another time and bring their families with them. You think that won't swing the vote and the future of America? Of course it will. Sebastian Gorka concludes, the more these alien cultures grow, the longer current European policies persist, the more terrorism is guaranteed. At the birthplace of Western culture, or rather as the birthplace of Western culture and values, Europe must act now and halt its willful decline. And it is willful. But his point being that right now they are an incubator for the terrorist. I got to tell you, I have really no interest in visiting London anymore. I aren't anywhere in there. I just wouldn't go because I don't know if I'm dealing with true Europeans, true Englishmen, Frenchmen, Germans, or terrorists. And it happens also inside our nation, obviously with terrorists and terrorist gangs, but it also happens on law enforcement areas. 13 Washington, D.C. police officers, including some high-ranking police officers, have been suspended. You know why? There'd been an internal investigation about how the department has been formulating crime stats. Remember, we have pointed out this before. A lot of states and cities fudged on their crime reports, or they wouldn't return them in at all because they did not want to give them to the FBI. They didn't want to show how much crime has gone up. They only put out the figures if they went down. So the interim police chief, Jeffrey Carroll, announced the suspensions yesterday. It's seen as the first part in a sometimes lengthy process of terminating their employment. According to the investigation so far, they found that numerous crime numbers were reduced, placing intense pressure on district commanders to produce even lower crime stats. You were low last time, you better be lower this time. And when, in fact, if you're not, well, then drop the number again. This is like asking for a budget. Well, we have money left over from the last budget. Don't tell them. Tell them we need even more money. Only this is going in reverse. By the way, when we're talking about the effect of what's happening in Europe, and this is not just terrorist activities, this is the socialist progressive attitude. Nurseries in Wales have been instructed to report incidents of toddlers engaging in racist behavior to the police, to taxpayer guidelines backed by the Welsh Labour-run British government. An extensive list of instructions for children workers to respond to racist incidents involving babies, toddlers, children, 12 and under, if anything constitutes a hate crime. Kids are kids. The other kid has a toy the other kid wants. They don't care what the color of the kid is. They want the toy back. They want the toy. They're going to start classifying a lot of those as hate crimes. And yet in this nation, we cannot seem to understand what real hate is. I mean, we do, but we continue to turn a blind eye to it. Do you know what they did in the House of Democrats in Minnesota? They were taking a vote. The vote would require that all voters in the state be U.S. citizens. Now, that seems to be a common thought, right? But no, they want illegals in Minnesota. But they went a step farther. There was also a vote to ensure that all state voters are alive. Alive. That should pass, right? Oh, no. No. Democrats voted to keep deceased people on the voter rolls in the Minnesota House. They want dead people not just walking, but voting. That's how they, quote, win, end of quote, an election. You don't think you need the Pass Safe America Act when it comes to our voting? Here's a perfect example. In Minnesota, they're going to let dead people vote, not just in state and local elections, but federal elections. This person's been dead. Oh, no, they should get a vote. Every person gets a vote in our nation, but they're a dead person, but they're allowed to vote. The hell they are. Disney star Mark Hamill just posed with President Barack Obama to promote his presidential library in Chicago. And he pointed to a photo of President Trump in a grave. I don't know that this was in the library or if he brought it. I can't believe it's actually in the library, the Obama library. And then again, I guess it could be. The caption with the photo of a Donald Trump in a grave had a category, or rather had a sign that read, "If only." If only. Hamill said, if only he should have lived long enough to witness his inevitable, devastating loss in the midterms, he'd be held accountable for his unprecedented corruption, impeached and convicted and humiliated. He posted that along as Blue Sky posted Trump in a grave, saying, long enough to realize he's disgraced in the history books forevermore. The Don, the con. Well, of course, the post went live. Host Jimmy Kimmel repeated the joke last week about Trump dying anyway, saying President Melania Trump is looking like an expectant widow. That was before the shooting at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. So he said, no, I wasn't talking about that. I was talking about their age difference, that he's more likely to die than her. Yeah, but you were egging on the fact that, let's see Trump dead. And Mark Hamill from Star Wars, flashing a photo of President Trump in a grave with a caption that said, if only. That's an out-and-out call for an assassination. Again, that is greater than James Comey's shells on the seashore, which he just found and he didn't know the meaning of. If you can and you're going to indict him, then I say you go after Mark Hamill and others that have done worse. I know it's free speech. And that's why I said I'm not in favor of going after Comey the way we have with this grand jury. And I really would not be in favor of going after Mark Hamill for using a picture and titling it with Trump in a grave, if only. Just because I'm on the right side or conservative and independent does not mean I want to buy into the theory that shut down everything that I don't like. That is fascism, my friend. That is fascism. And yet the left thinks that Trump is a fascist. And they continue to tell anything and every story they want. And, of course, we continue to have men and women downrange in the theater of harm, in harm's way, in the Iranian Strait of Hormuz area. But again, Secretary of State Rubio driving home the point, why we are there is not just for access of gas and oil or any transport ships. There's a bigger issue on the table.
The president basically said is that Iran can't have a nuclear weapon because they would use it against places that have a lot of Catholics and Christians and others for that matter. It goes back to the central point. I think the president, without trying to speak for him, but I think I can characterize it this way. He doesn't understand why anybody, leave aside the Pope, the president, and I, for that matter, I think most people, I cannot understand why anyone would think that it's a good idea for Iran to ever have a nuclear weapon. Look what they're doing with the Straits right now. They're holding the whole world hostage. They have these sailors, on commercial ships that are going to starve to death out there. They don't care. They don't care that this is melting down the economies around the world, even of their own allies. This is what they're doing with the Straits. What do you think they would do if they had a nuclear weapon? They would hold the world hostage with that nuclear weapon. That's what they would do. They would do exactly to the world with a nuclear weapon what they're doing now with the Straits. And I think the president's point is how anyone cannot see that as an unacceptable outcome and an unacceptable risk is beyond him. It's puzzling. And someone has to do something about it. The difference between this president and like the 6 presidents that preceded him were that he's the only one that's actually been willing to do something about it. Everyone says Iran can't have a nuclear weapon, but you got to do something about it at some point. And he's been willing to address that threat. And that's what he promised he would do when he got elected, by the way, is address threats like this.
And Rubio did meet with the Pope at the Vatican, and I'm sure that was part of their discussion. And I'm sure he drove home the point that to the Pope, you do realize the Vatican and Catholics would be wiped out as well. Do you understand that? You want to turn the other cheek? I don't think so. And one of the targets would be the entire state of Israel. In the meantime, the Iranian president speaking publicly for the first time after a meeting of the new supreme leader, which we haven't seen in public since he took office. But the Iranian president said, I had the pleasure of meeting our leader. We spoke with him for nearly 2.5 hours. First of all, I should tell you that his views and the way he interacted were truly sincere and humble. For a leader to treat someone in such a manner, he truly had a demeanor. In other words, suggesting he's not somebody like Trump, boisterous. Maybe not. But he's also wanting to have a nuclear weapon. China, by the way, has ordered companies to disregard any U.S. sanctions targeting Iranian oil. They want to continue to see oil flow from Iran to China because China gets 80% of its oil and gas from there, and they will give Iran money for it. And we say, no way. Join us again tomorrow, and remember our pledge, one nation,